Fishing the DMV has big plans for the future. To get there, I need your help. We are only 3 Patreon supporters away from our next major milestone. Only 3 more individuals need to sign up. For $6 a month, which is less than a pack of Cincos or a jackhammer chatterbait, all Patreon supporters will receive 5% off their orders to Jake's Bait and Tackle, 20% off their orders to Shallow Water Fishing Adventures Tackle, 10% off their orders to Tiger Crankbaits, 10% off their orders to Catoctin Creek Rods. You'll also gain access to our private Facebook group community, members-only content and videos, monthly prize giveaways, and so much more. Again, we only need 3 more individuals to hit our next major milestone. Once this major milestone is hit, we will announce our big party, our Patreon meetup with a ton of special guests, seminar speakers, so much more this summer that will only be available for people who are Patreon members to go to. And we'll also maybe have a couple more special surprises to announce then. For more information, link in the episode description down below. Thank you so much. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia, and Shallow Water Fishing Adventures Baits, online, located in Mount Airy, Maryland.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Fishing the DMV. I'm your host, Thomas Ahrens. Today, I have a really special guest. I think he was like the first Patreon supporter I ever had, a creek fishing legend in his own right, Victor Albert. Victor, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Thomas.
So we were talking a little bit before we got started, we got recording here, but I really love you to tell like everyone again, like where did your passion for fishing get ignited?
It got ignited when I met my wife's dad, actually. He introduced me to bass fishing at some farm ponds. And through those farm ponds, I progressed to larger bodies of water, lakes, and then I found rivers, creeks, and I love that so much more. There's just so much more adventure to it. You can pick one point and just go off to where most people don't really have the energy to get to, especially by wading. It's a lot easier to go upstream that way. And I feel like that's a lot better presentation for the fish.
And then you got into Middleburg, right? Is that where, like, when did Middleburg and really the pond fishing take off for you?
So that started, I want to say 2018.
Okay.
So it's not too long ago, I feel like. And there's just a lot of farm ponds and a lot of friendly folk out there that you just go knock on their door, be like, hey, I'm trying to fish your pond. Do you mind if I go cast out a few times? And normally they're pretty forward and just like, yes or no. And you'll go on to the next house.
Yeah, that's the problem with doing the pond hopping thing is it really comes down to knocking on a lot of doors and playing the ratio game of you finding an individual that is willing to do it. And it's harder now than when I was like a kid because so many people are worried about getting sued. You can't do that anymore.
I found a lot of the older folks tend to be okay with it, especially being younger as I was. I just feel like they feel like they're just letting someone, play on their property. So it was a nice area to do it in. Middleburg also is a very nice area.
Yeah, it is. It's a real nice area. Goose Creek also flows through, I think, parts of Middleburg, if I'm not mistaken. At least the area towards Purcellville, Virginia, which that's also a really nice creek. That's a hidden gem in its own right that I need to explore a little bit more. Creek fishing in general, this is something that you post so many cool photos and stuff, just not only to our Patreon page, but all over the place. When it comes to creek fishing, first, like, how do you find good creeks?
A lot of times on Google Maps. So you got to switch between the different features. I don't like the way that they updated the Google Maps. That makes them more like Apple Maps. But I'll switch between the different views, and basically I'll go between road crossings and see what kind of areas they have. And from the satellite view, you can kind of see if they have a parking spot or not. It'll be pretty just like visible if you know what you're looking for. And you just pretty much look all around, and some of them, like no one has ever been to. And so it's really nice to just get down there and to fish them and to go upstream, downstream, just keep going, go to different points and go from one bridge to a different bridge. And then the next time go park at the next bridge and then wade further upstream.
Yeah, that's really important too, is when you're doing your searches, finding areas that you can actually get down to the freaking water. Generally speaking, what watershed are you fishing? Is it the Rappahannock, the Shenandoah, the Potomac, a little bit of all of them?
Definitely the Rappahannock. So mostly I'll fish the Rappahannock, the Rapidan, the Rose, the Robinson, the Hughes River, and then a lot of the different runs that come off of there. One of my favorites is Mountain Run. It's gotten kind of bad recently, but it used to be one of my favorites just because it's right where I live.
Why do you think it's gotten bad?
The water in the lake that feeds it hasn't been the greatest quality. Since I've been there, I've seen a few fish floating up dead by the dock.
Oh.
Especially when we were having a dry period a while back. There were parts of the lake that were 50 feet out from the shoreline that were exposed. And it just really pressured everything. There wasn't much flow. There wasn't much breeze. And the fish didn't really do that great during that time.
And that really does happen sometimes when you get droughts and things like that. Were you noticing like any lesions on them or anything like that?
I do. And I tried to get some pictures of them because I want to try and I have aquariums, as you can see, and I have a pond outside that I will occasionally treat fish that I have that are infected and keep them as my pets.
That's cool.
I got the permits to do that. You just apply on the DNR website, pay the fee, and voila.
How did you get into that? That's pretty cool.
I wanted something for my daughter to look at when she was just laying there in the crib, so I got a little fish tank. And as I got into fishing more and more creeks, I was like, oh, there's little tiny fish that you could put in there. And so I started with little darters, and eventually I had to get a 300-gallon fish tank.
That's really cool, dude. I didn't like, how much does the permit cost, if you don't mind me asking? Is it like super expensive? Is it doable, or?
It's really not. It's expensive. It's only about $60.
Oh, it's not bad. Okay.
And you do have to list the fish that you're trying to keep. And so I know what's in the area. And so I just listed what I have the possibility of catching and keeping. And typically you'll notice the cuts on the smallmouth and the channel cats. And it's just kind of like a bacteria that'll grow on them. I have one fish in here that I've treated, that it was all over his gill plate that I had caught out of the Rapidan River. And I'm not really sure what that is. I'm sure it has to do with something about the water quality. And I've been trying to look into that, done the little aquarium tests to see if, I could figure something out on my own, but it's a little bigger than that.
What's the biggest thing you have in that tank? Because there's some stuff swimming behind you right now. That's just, my ADHD is going wild. Like, what do you got in there right now? Oh man, he looks big.
That's a rock bass.
Dude, that's cool.
Currently, he's about 11, 12 inches.
Damn.
Bedding.
Is that a crappie? What is that one there?
It's another rock bass, and
Oh.
this is the bedding area.
Oh, it's bedding. Oh, damn.
Yeah, in the tank.
That's really
I'm
cool.
trying to. I got permits to breed them as well.
I never knew that was a thing you could get. That's really wild. Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to try and learn how to work with the fish, learn about the biology and the behavior of it.
How hard is it to get them to try to spawn?
This is my first time, so it's seeming kind of difficult, but I have hope because a lot of people say that's more towards the end of summer, like late August, September. So I have hopes.
Is there anything you had to do special just to get the cage ready for it or try to prompt them to do it?
More just kind of section off a little area with the wood and I don't know if you can see. But just the pea gravel is what they like. Just their natural. I don't know if you'll notice they bed just like bluegill do. They brush off the sand. They get the pea gravel around. They keep their circle nice and clean. And I like to look at those when I'm out fishing. You'll see those all the time. You'll see in the sun exposed areas on some rocky sandy flats, you'll see a bunch of nests. And those are just some of the best areas to fish because there's a bunch of smallmouth in between there. The big red breast are biting it too. I don't care what I catch. I love catching all fish.
Well, that's kind of cool when we're talking about creeks and a lot of those tributaries to the Rappahannock, like I've never heard of those places, so this is really fascinating to me. What is generally for people that want to do creek fishing? What do you like to take with you when you go out there?
So the most important piece of equipment is definitely the wading vest, so you can carry everything around with you. Because depending on what you see, you might want to change it up, do a few different things, swap this and that out. So I always have my vest with me. And then I'll show you my favorite lure, regardless of the time of year. It always catches fish. I don't know if you can see it, but it is a mule fishing burrow bug.
A mule fishing burrow bug. Wow, that thing looks cool.
And it's just a little crawfish imitation. Everything will eat it. I caught my PB Smalley on one of these. Just close to 3 pounds.
Wow. What size head is that?
That's a 1/20th, and then I also fish a 1/15 ounce of these
The Neds.
finesse micro shrooms.
Ooh, that's a good one there. That's a really light head. Are you using an ultralight or a medium light, or what do you typically use?
I typically like an ultralight, and I typically fish with a lighter line, especially during the summer because the water's super clear, and those fish are very skittish in that clear, shallow water because a lot of times, you're fishing in 2-3 feet of water.
What is the average depth then? Is it 2 to 3 feet? Or do you ever fish deeper?
There are a lot of deeper pools, but typically it's about 2 to 3 feet. And it's just really nice wading conditions, really sandy bottoms in a lot of the rivers, especially the Rapidan, the Rose River, and the Robinson River. And those two also do hold trout.
Really? That's cool.
They get stocked with trout. So that's nice as well. I'll occasionally get into a few of those. Got into fly fishing for them for a little bit. That was fun.
How hard was it to learn how to fly fish?
It was awesome to learn how to do at a fishing resort on the Rose River. There were a lot of older guys there when I went, and I was able to just sit back and watch them and ask them a lot of questions. and that was really helpful to me. Just to watch the finesse in person, because you're really working with the wind as you're doing it.
Mm.
And it was just a really awesome experience. And I liked doing it elsewhere with just spinning tackle. I'll fly fish with, depending on what they're biting.
How long did it take you to find all these really cool fishing spots? Was this all trial and error, or is this something you just Googled some neat places to go and started to go there?
No, it was a lot of trial and error. A lot of trial and error. There have been a lot of spots that I've gone to and been like, this is horrible. I'm never going back there. You know, I slipped and fell so many times. I've lost a few phones. So that's not the best moment, especially when you're late getting back home.
It's crazy because when you look at like the rows, like, I mean, again, the Rappahannock, the Rapidan, you know, the two main places that confluence together to make the full Rappahannock River. How did you get into the rows and all these like other little like tributaries? Like, was that something that you Googled or a friend told you about, or you just looked at a map and said like, I want to go there?
I follow the bodies of water that I like to fish. I know it's in the bodies of water that I like to fish, and so I'll kind of follow them upstream, downstream, and just see where the points of access are. Different bridges will have, like I said, have parking. And then, you know, you'll find different access points that are actually like on the map that no one goes to. So I work in Ashburn. There's a kayak launch on Google Maps, or at least there was when I found it. And I went, it's by a little dam that's on Broad Run.
Okay.
And I'd go there and I'd catch 14, 15 smallies in 30 minutes.
I know what you're talking about. Is that below? That's the place below Goose Creek. I'm thinking Leesburg. Yeah. Okay. I know what I'm talking about now.
And, you know, I brought my waders for work, and I've waded upstream and downstream. And all of the spots are horrible except for that one spot.
I'm trying to think of the dam, honestly. I'm like, I have the map up, guys, because I'm trying, like, he's just dumping so many really cool spots right now. And
if you look by the Redskins bubble.
Oh, you're way down here. Near Shady Oaks. There we go. So we got Algonquian Park. I think you're north of Algonquian Park, correct?
So it's south.
Oh.
So if you look at Broad Run, it kind of comes in by, I think it's Sheldon Island.
There's Sargaland Run and Nichols Run.
Also by Blues Park. I think you're a little too far.
Oh, gotta go back up north. So it's right in here next to Old Sugarland Run.
It's pretty close to Algonquian. I've walked
That's cool.
there from Algonquian launch.
Horse Run.
But it's Broad Run.
This is Goose, isn't it? Nope, Broad Run. Here it is. I can't believe you found
and there's
this
a
place,
lot of
dude.
carp in there too.
Have you ever caught
There's
a carp?
A lot of carp. I love catching carp. It's so fun.
Really?
I'll take my PB&J from lunch that my wife makes me, and I'll just put them on a little mosquito hook, and I'll go catch some nice 4 or 5 pound carp on my little ultralight, and it's awesome.
Oh my god, dude! Those things must pull.
They are awesome. I love it.
Do you actually put a split shot or anything on that, or you just throw it out there with just the hook?
It depends on how much of my sandwich I have left and how hungry I am. If I got a lot of sandwich left, no, I'll just put the bread on there and I'll wet the bread before I toss it out to give it a little extra weight. However, if it's just a small little bit, I'll add a little weight to it.
What's the biggest carp you've caught?
8 pounds, 8 ounces on a 4-pound line.
Ooh, that's got to pull real good. Wow. Dang, dude.
It was pretty fun. And I caught on my lunch, which was even better. Having to go back to work after that sucked.
Oh, yeah, I bet. That's the day that you want to play hooky. That's cool, because what's so interesting about the Ashburn area for people that don't live here is Ashburn, Leesburg, Falls Church, it's so freaking developed. It's stupid developed. And you wouldn't think that there's fish in those creeks that feed the Potomac. So many.
There's so many. And there's a lot of residential areas that I don't know who made the trails, if it's deer or people. There's trails through the woods that lead to the creek, and you could just go fish them. You know, it's just a few parking spots. You got to go walk around, look around, spend some time doing some footwork, and eventually you'll find some nice spots. And you'll end up on some beautiful areas too. Walking through the woods, you'll find like tons of wildflowers, tons of wildlife that you don't think is really in the Loudoun area.
That's interesting. You do get these pockets of nature in Ashburn and Leesburg now, it's so freaking cool. And I bet you see that a lot more on the Rappahannock, the Rapidan tributaries too.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's
what? Go ahead.
You expect a lot more beauty out here, though. There's a lot more forest and greenery out this way. There's a lot less trash. The only thing is there's a lot of farmlands that put out a lot of sediment, which you can definitely tell when you walk by them. Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know what can actually be done about any of that, honestly. It's just kind of the way it is. Maybe there is, I'm just not thinking of one. You did mention earlier that really cool crawl bait. Is that the only thing that you throw, or do you have a couple of other things that you like to bring with you?
I like to throw a few different things. I'm out of a few of the other presentations, but another one is just like a 2-inch minnow. I like these Kitechs, and this electric. I think it's
Kitech Easy Shiner. Kitech Easy Shiner 2-inch electric shad. Yep, that's a banger.
I think that blue fleck really helps in the clear water. A lot of the minnows that I catch just have that blue shimmer. And I try and net and see what's around before I throw.
Smart.
I feel like that helps. And then I have seen a few gar recently, which I've been trying to target and catch.
How?
Cut bait. I have a smaller fishing pole with just some heavier line on it. And I'll just put a small circle hook on there, and I'll have a little piece of cut bait I'll throw out when I see them. Try and sight cast them, because they're kind of far between on the Rappahannock and the Rapidan.
What's the biggest thing that you've seen on the Rapidan and the Rappahannock?
Definitely some catfish. Some huge channel catfish. There's definitely some big carp as well. However, I'm not sure which one's bigger, because they're both pushing the same length and they're both pretty girthy, and I haven't caught them yet.
Yeah, at least you're not seeing a lot of flathead, which is good. Channel cat would be a lot of fun to catch on that little crawl bait for sure. That's insane.
I've caught some good ones on there, and they're pretty fun, but some nice smallies are way better.
How did you, what's the story behind your biggest smallie?
I was waiting the Rapidan. I found a new area on a bridge that I just decided, here's a parking spot. I'm going to pull off and park it. And it was a little treacherous to get down. And I got down to the water and I said, this is going to be awesome. And I fished for about 4 hours. And on the way back, I was just casting, drifting it downstream. And I saw him come up right before he grabbed it. And I just let it pause. And as soon as he grabbed, I set the hook. And it was probably a 3-minute fight on that ultralight. And that was pretty awesome. And then by the time I got back, there was a family down by the little beach, and they're like, "Yeah, you just park right here and walk up."
That's so cool. That's
They
really
told
cool,
me
dude.
how to get to it. And then I saw some snakehead there too, which was kind of cool.
Have you
I
caught
do
a
like
snakehead?
catching those.
I was gonna say,
I
like,
have
yeah.
caught them. However, it's few and far between, especially with my light line. I don't
Mm.
really target them. So unless I'm throwing a spinner bait and they bite the hook and really just bite on the metal as I'm fighting them, I'm not really going to get them in.
Have you ever thought about trying a medium light rod? It just to give you a little bit more backbone on the hook set, or what are your thoughts about all that?
I have, but a lot of the wading situations that I try and get to, I try and do uh, some close to the water casts, and I just feel like that shorter length really helps because I use a 5'4",
Smart.
and you can't really find a medium light in that length. I've only found lights and ultralights.
Interesting. Yeah, like I 100% agree with you. You don't want like a 7 or 9 foot rod when you're creek fishing, wade fishing. Having that short, compact rod, it's just so much more movable when you're around the low hanging trees. You're walking around slippery rocks. There's just so many things nice about having that shorter rod.
Especially trying to skip it into some of those laydowns and stuff. You really want to just have that angle on the water because sometimes it's, belly height. So if you got a longer rod, it's just a lot more difficult to manage. I've used a 6'6" for it, but it just didn't really work out the greatest.
Yeah, because even with a 6 foot, that adds you another foot and a half. If I'm not, another foot and a half of length to it. Which again, you're just going to snag so many things, and especially if you want to pitch and flip, which is a lot of times what you'll be doing, not just bomb casting it. So nice to have that shorter rod.
It's really nice for the.
Oh, go.
It's really nice for the creeks when you are walking down the middle and you can cast to both sides and you don't have to bomb it.
Yeah. Yep. And you got to worry. What I've seen, at least when I do ultralight fishing, is the hook and really worrying about the thickness of the hook. And that was, so last year when I creek fished, I bought those micro TRDs just for that. And I was using an ultralight rod for creek fishing. No issues. But I was fishing like 2 feet of water and I was making small pitches with an ultralight, no problem. And I took that same setup. I was like, I'm going to take this on the boat with me to the bigger part of the Potomac where it's like, 6-7 feet. I'm making bomb casts and I'm setting the hook and it's like setting the hook with a pool noodle and I'm not getting them. And I couldn't figure out well, it worked in the creek. Why is it not working in here? And my brain, I guess I finally just figured out, it's like, that longer cast with that wimpy rod, there's so much line out there, you just cannot bury that hook in it.
Yeah, it also has to do with the line stretch. Depending on what you're fishing with, like I don't fish with braid.
Oh.
I got this, I guess it's a polycarbon, but it's ball sacks fishing line. Ball sacks with an X.
Never heard of that before.
And it's pretty nice. It's very light. I can cast it for yards.
That stuff looks. Oh, you're fine. No, that's interesting. Why don't you like using braid?
You just end up bumping into too many rocks and sticks that on an ultralight you feel too much. You can't really differentiate, and I just feel like on the other line, when it kind of gives, your hook will pop off before it sets the hook. Whereas the braid, it'll set the hook immediately. So I kind of just put a little pressure, and then normally it'll take it, and then I can set the hook.
I need to try that. I'm probably going to do some wade fishing on Friday night, I think. Wait, I have a tournament on Saturday. I'm doing some wade fishing one of these nights here, and I'll try that. Because there's something else I really want to do is target different species, not just smallmouth, like fall fish. Google eye, rock bass. Like, have you figured out at all like a way to kind of hedge your bet that you're going to catch them? Is it a bait, or is it like an area in the river, or is it just pure luck?
It's definitely areas and the time of day.
Oh,
The time of day has a big play into it. Um, so typically, right around noon to, I want to say about 3 is not the greatest time to go. Um, Especially this time of year. They're just a little bit too hot, a little too muggy, skittish. I don't know what it is, but they're not biting. Um, and I have waded parts of the Potomac that are a little bit skinnier, um, and that's pretty nice. Uh, and it's really those eddies right by the fast flowing water that you'll catch, the rock bass, the fall fish, uh, and throwing into those sticks and logs that people are kind of afraid to get stuck on, but you just kind of drift it in between the sticks. And you can do that with that ultralight line, that lighter hook. It sinks a little bit slower. So you can kind of drift it in between.
I think I was going to say American trash fish. That's a bait. I'm sorry, everybody. I think the suckers are such an undervalued fish to catch. Like, that is something I'm always excited when I hook. And personally for me, even to this day, and maybe it's now because I fish more trout waters when I hook them, it's like, oh, is that a rainbow? Just with how they fight and how their body reflects light until you get them in and you realize it's one of those suckers. And those bigger ones, damn, they pull hard. They really do on light tackle.
They do, and you'll catch different kinds, and some of them are suckers, some of them are fall fish, some of them are chubs. And I try and, learn the different species that you're catching, to learn the different diversity that's in the area, to see, what you have more of, what's spawning. And we definitely do have a lot more fall fish than we have chubs. And, we have more daces in the trout waters than we do in the Rapidan and the Rappahannock compared to the Rose and the Robinson.
Why?
I feel like it's the faster flowing, colder, shallower water that kind of keeps them in there. Not as many predators can get to them once they get full size, because the bluegill that can keep up in that water are too small. And once they get that, they can't keep up with the little daces in the fast flowing water.
And even with their mouth structure, I've caught so many on trout magnets, micro Ned rigs, jerk baits of all things. Like, they're very aggressive with the way you'd think they just feed on the bottom.
Oh, they'll hit spinners.
Really? I've never caught one on a spinner before. That's cool. Huh.
Yeah, if they're really hungry, they will. And it's awesome because it's every cast when they're hitting the spinner. They're tearing it up. And some of them, I've caught a few citation ones. However, I didn't submit them after the first one, like a trout, until you fight them for a minute, and then they kind of just flop around a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. They got that first jolt, and then they're kind of done.
Yeah. It's the initial excitement. And then they also, I found that trying to unhook them, they always spit up everything in their stomach. It's horrible smell on your hands.
Yeah, they do that thing. Rock bass, or in our area we call them Google eye, man, we just don't see a lot of them, generally speaking. Or maybe I'm just not targeting them, but that's another thing it's so much fun, and it reminds me of my childhood catching those.
So I catch a lot of those. I haven't mentioned them yet, but in the Hazel and the Thornton River, those also feed into the Rappahannock. And there's a few good entry spots for those that are pretty public. And if you just wade up and downstream, you can catch them. They're always schooling together. If you find one, there's always going to be more. It's like this the species stick together with the fish for the rock bass.
Okay.
Um,
Like crappie.
yeah, for sure.
Are you pretty, just generically speaking, just parking at a bridge and like spelunking down the side of the bridge face, or just is that usually your access point and then you can free rein up and downstream?
Typically, no. I look for kind of like a path to walk down. Um, and normally I'll find some. There have been a few where, I've already driven there and I'm not gonna drive somewhere else, so I'm getting down there one way or another.
Mm.
And typically I just don't go back to those.
Yeah, because
But
a lot of
my
these
favorite
places, yeah.
ones
Go for it.
are just quick walks through some tall grass. You gotta watch for ticks. That's a big thing. Find a lot of ticks just getting to the areas and getting back out.
Is there anything that you do to prevent them or try to prevent them?
No, I just check for them. I don't like the bug spray. It's not good for the fish. And I don't like wearing lug pants while waiting, especially in this heat. So I just check for ticks after I'm done.
Brave man, brave man. I specifically feel like I'd rather sweat a little bit versus with the long pants and do the short pants, do the shorts and get them. I'm just so terrified of actually getting a tick on me. But you got to go off the beaten path to kind of find these like exits and stuff. And where do you consider like a place that you'd be willing to park? Is it just enough of a shoulder and that's good enough for you? Is that some of the places you've ended up parking?
Some of them, yes, but typically no. Typically, I like a full pull-off area. Um, and sometimes, there's just random parking spots by bridges. You'd be surprised. There's just parking spots by bridges.
How'd you figure that out? Just trial?
Just check on Google Maps and you'll see that there's, a slightly less grown-in patch of grass. Drive by, you'll see that there's, the tire tracks over them. Park right there.
Dude, that's freaking awesome. What's the Oh, go for it.
Just check for no trespassing signs. Make sure you're not parking someone's property.
Have you gotten in trouble yet? I know there's so many YouTubers that have posted crazy videos like this, but have you ever had an incident while you were waiting?
Not one that wasn't pleasant. I've met a lot of nice people while waiting the river. I've had a lot of folks be like, cast over here. I've seen a lot of fish over here.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a really nice area to fish. The smaller waters are pretty nice. They're secluded for the most part. And if, you find another person waiting, they're normally pretty chill.
It really is the last bastion of that protected nature in the eastern United States is these smaller creeks and stuff. Because you look at a Lake Anna that'll eventually be made private by big old black rock groups, and you have all these other places that are getting built up. But you find a creek in Ashburn or on the Rapid Dam, and it feels like it's another world. It's crazy how quickly it goes from metropolis to just you out in nature.
Yeah, it's pretty much like an entry point into Narnia.
Yeah.
Once you get on the water, you're there. And I always like wading upstream if I can. I just feel like that's a better presentation for the fish. So if I'm ever in a new area and I have an option of wading upstream or downstream, I'll always wade upstream first. Just because as you're casting and you're drifting your bait down, it just looks more natural. It doesn't have that jerky reaction for the fish. I've just had more success that way.
What is one story before we put a bow on it for today? Like, I need a good story.
There's a few. I guess I'll tell you the story that happened last week. I decided to take my daughter, because normally I wade fish. My buddy got a canoe, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go canoeing?" So we went canoeing, and it was awesome. We had so much fun catching fish. It was fish after fish. We got out, but I brought my daughter, and she had fun catching some little red breast, not bluegill. Um, and as we're going downstream, we flip over and I lose my fishing pole, my kid, my buddy loses his fishing poles,
Name the
my
fishing
bait
pole
hook,
first.
the
I like it.
binoculars, and I ended up finding my one bright yellow fishing pole, and I just couldn't fish after that in front of him. I just felt so bad. And so we went back the next weekend, and I ended up hooking into multiple nice smallies in that exact same area, and it was awesome. It was a nice redemption.
I do appreciate a real angler that mentions losing the fishing rod before their own kid. I like that, because it was a beautiful combo.
Yeah, I didn't realize the kid until my buddy had her, and by then I was like, "You got her. I'm looking for the fishing poles," and I was diving in after him. He was wishing me luck from the sidelines
How long has she been into fishing?
since she was born. She caught her first bass by herself over a year ago, and she's only 3. Fishing mountain run, just a little creek, uh, little Barbie fishing pole, and yeah, she loves it.
That's
Loves
awesome.
crappie fishing, loves catching anything, uh, loves netting anything fish.
Yeah, and creeks are just so perfect for that, just for anyone, just that entrance into this really cool lifelong obsession, because you're going to catch stuff. You're going to see stuff. It's not some of these places you go, and if you get 5 bites in 8 hours, it's like, it's a big deal. And that's really something that I would highly recommend anyone listening to this or watching on YouTube is if you want to get kids involved, it's not going to the pond, it's not going to lakes, it's get some old tennis shoes on and a net and go to some of these creeks, because you will have success and you will hook stuff. And it's an adventure in of itself. It really is.
Oh yeah, bad days like 20 fish.
That's awesome.
You know, creeks are awesome to fish. There's a lot of life in there, especially if you downsize enough, you're bound to catch something.
Is there any species that you really want to catch out of a creek right now that's on your bucket list?
I really want to catch a long-nosed gar. I've caught one before, and it was pretty fun. I just want to catch one because I think they're really pretty. I like going after the pretty fish. As babies, they're not pretty. It's their tail that's pretty.
Oh, wow.
But they do get to a good size in these rivers, and they like to school up.
Oh, wow. They do look pretty. That's
And
cool.
they do
That tail.
put up a
Wow.
pretty decent fight. They do pull a lot. And they have the teeth that you got to watch out for, which is pretty awesome.
I love that palette on their tail because it reminds me like a snakehead. And a snakehead, I really love the way a snakehead looks. It's a really cool, like it'd be a cool gun wrap, it'd be a cool rod wrap, just those designs like that. That is neat. And I love the scale size on the gar, like just these big scales that really pop.
Yeah, and they're really awesome, just prehistoric fish. They've been here since the dinosaurs. So they're just pretty awesome, to think about as a part of the environment that we have around us that aren't available in some areas. And a lot of people don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. People bow hunt for them a lot, and then they don't eat them, which I've seen and I don't really like, but to each their own.
To each their own, exactly. And that's something else that I'm going to be getting on this summer is a bow fishing organization, just to kind of talk about their perspective on everything too. But now, Victor, I really appreciate your time today and really giving us a glimpse into wade fishing, and that there's a lot of places in Northern Virginia and Central Virginia that you can go wade fish. It's just being willing to get off the beaten path, take the path less traveled, and get out there and explore.
All it really takes is some time on Google Maps and the willingness to get out there and do a little footwork and not be afraid to go to some areas that don't pan out.
100%. As always, guys, it really helps the channel. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us out in the algorithm. Go check us out on Patreon. We're only 5 members away from our next major milestone. Once we hit that milestone, I am planning a massive meet and greet with some special guests only for Patreon subscribers. So please go check that out. Victor, is there anything that we can promote for you here? Any social media plugs?
No, I don't really do a lot of social media besides just posting the fish pics.
And hopefully you continue to do that, because your underwater fish pics, dude, are just absolutely always the best. I'm a sucker for underwater fish pics. I don't know why, but I just am. It's just really cool. Especially the one you did with the clouds, where you saw the clouds come up and over the water, and to see that shade, it's like, oh wow, that's what it looks like from their perspective.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to see the world from their view, and see what they look like under the water, and see what their bait looks like. Dude,
100%. But guys, we'll see you guys next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.